The main purpose here in life is not to become smarter, wiser, and so on, but basically to clear up all our karma, which holds us back to this life, to this vibration.
I'd like to welcome to the show, Hans Wilhelm. How you doing, Hans?
Oh, very well. Thank you, Alex. Delighted to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk to you. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a few weeks ever since we booked it, because I love the work that you're doing. I love the straightforwardness of your answers to these deep questions about life and where we're at. But my very first question to you is, my friend, how did you start your spiritual journey, or when did you start your spiritual journey?
Oh, I think I started very young when I was in Germany, grew up, and I didn't believe what was taught in the churches. Somehow they never answered the question, where do we come from, why we're here, and where we are going. Mm-hmm. So I kept on searching, and then thanks to the Beatles, I discovered Maharishi and the TM thing, which I no longer do, but it did help me a lot because it gave me a lot of courage, self-respect, and so on and so on. Then I left for Africa, and there I learned Edgar Cayce, and so on. Then later came to America, and lots of other spiritual paths. And then I had the great fortune to work together with Byron Katie and Dr. Kübler-Ross and so on. So it's a long venture, and I studied many, many different paths. And for the last 40 years or so, I've been mainly linked to some deeply mystical Christian spiritual paths, from where most of the information that I share in my videos are coming from. So that's basically in a nutshell. So I've always been looking for it. I always wanted to understand the bigger picture. That was my important things. Why are we here, etc., and where we are going to. That was most important for me to know.
And it's really interesting to illustrate what you kind of want to point a little bit about what you just said, is that you tried a buffet of different paths to the truth. And that's something that some people need to listen to, because it's not just like you find it and like, oh, this is it. This is the only thing I found it. Some people are lucky that way, but I think you become more well-rounded when you start to study multiple traditions and to start looking for the common denominators to really sink in the truth. Do you agree?
Fully agree. You have to find out what resonates with you. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of stuff which I believed even on this path, later I changed my mind on it. But at that time, I had to understand that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be ready for the next step. So there are a lot of stuff which I no longer really would say this is what I believe, but at the time, 10, 20 years, 50 years ago, I believed it very strongly. But it has changed, and that is fine. That is the normal, gradual way of reawakening. I don't think we learn anything new. All we are doing is reawaken what we know deep down in us. And there may be some detours necessary, but basically the more we search, the more we will find out what is it truly, who we are and why we are here.
And the concept of remembering as opposed to being taught is such a powerful one, because as I keep speaking to mystics and spiritual masters like yourself, I keep understanding more and more that we too remember more than we are taught things. And that's why when the concept of reincarnation was first brought into my existence, I said, oh, that makes sense. It was a remembering of like, that makes much more sense than this other stuff that I've been learning in the Catholic Church for the last, 20 years. I'm like, this makes more sense to me because it rings true to me. So it's that remembering that's extremely powerful. And so, in other words, the cup is not empty and needs to be full. The cup has been full since you were born. You just have to open up the key to get access to it. And that you do by evolving and awakening more and more, correct?
That's very true. And I had the very same response as you had when I first time came in contact with the Edgar Cayce material, who spoke about, of course, reincarnation, that God and that Christ taught reincarnation. I had the same thing. Oh my God, now everything makes sense. Suddenly I know why somebody got sick, rich, poor, and so on. And it was just a revelation. As you said, it was a reawakening of what I had known deep down in myself for a long time, but nobody taught me before.
And isn't it interesting that at least when, coming from the same perspective as both you and I did, that you only had the one life. And you only, if you happen to be born rich, lucky you. If you happen to be born good looking, lucky you. But if you were born, without a leg, that's bad luck. But that's all you have. Yeah. And that never made sense to me. I was like, man, that's pretty crappy universal odds.
Yeah, and then speaking that God is love and then allows things like this makes no sense. You cannot in one way speak of a loving God and then think that the one lifetime only people have it sometimes very bad and others have it very good. That doesn't make sense. But the churches unfortunately had to teach it because, as you know, reincarnation was taken out forcefully in the, I think, 6th century by an emperor, not even by a pope. And therefore, all the other Christian denominations, which later broke off from the Catholic Church, never changed that and never corrected it. So they all picked up the same idea that reincarnation is not true. It's not in the Christian teaching, but it was. Christ taught reincarnation. We do have enough evidence for that one. And unfortunately, it's just no longer taught in the organized religion.
So for people who are listening to this for the first time, this concept of reincarnation, why do we reincarnate?
Because we are such fools. No.
we just want a beating. We just want to continue to be beaten.
Well, there are many, many reasons why a soul reincarnates. Of course, one thing can be really to re-enjoy the physical life, because in the spiritual life, we don't have physical body, and certain things like sex and other pleasures are difficult to really fulfill up there. These are sort of people who come back here for this pleasure. Others come here to help other souls to really grow and assist them. Others come here to actually explore this universe and this life here. But the majority of people in this lifetime, my understanding is, come here to clear up our old messed up karma. That is our main reason. We come here for an average of only less than 800,000 hours each time, which is extremely short. Consider that we are eternal beings. Mm-hmm. And in these very short times, we are entering what I call the school of the Earth School. And we are here to undo our karma, because when we look at our life, whatever we experience our life from morning till evening is nothing but a rewinding of our film, of our life film, which means anything that we have done in the past or thought in the past, hurt other people or spoke to, comes back to us. Everything comes back to us in small portions. We call it the day's energy, so that we now have the opportunity to clear it up. So therefore, now I suddenly get sick. Now suddenly cuts me off in the traffic. Now suddenly I get this awful email. Suddenly this and things happens. These are all elements that we have once sown, which are coming back from the causal computer. This is where our karma is stored, coming back to us right now so that we can clear it up. The main purpose here in life is not to become smarter, wiser, and so on, but basically to clear up all our karma, which holds us back to this life, to this vibration, the earth or world vibration. So we have to free ourselves. So every day is carefully orchestrated by ourselves, for ourselves, for the pure and sole purpose of freedom.
So the concept of being down here to become wiser or more sage-like depends on the soul and its blueprint that it's laid out for itself. Some people do walk that path to become yogis or spiritual masters in their lifetime. Others come down here to like, man, I did a lot of bad in the last go around. I gotta give a lot of good in this one to clear that up. It all is relative to where that soul is in its evolution. And I love what you said about the vibration, because it's something that's so core to everything we're talking about, is to raise our vibration higher to actually come back to source, where something like hate and anger is a very low, dense, slow vibration, where love is extremely high. Forgiveness, being service to others. These are high vibrational energies, getting you closer and closer to God or the source energy, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's in our hand. As I said, we are here. The only thing we have to do here is to love, nothing else.
Right.
And when we do the love, we learn to forgive. We have no resentment. We clear up anything that comes here and we conquer it with love. It sounds so simplistic. It isn't easy, but it is. It's love is all that which matters. And through love, we set ourselves free. And not only ourselves, but everybody else around us whom we have hurt or who have hurt us. So the freedom is all around, because freedom is the main goal for me and I think for all of us. And love is the key. And we can do this through forgiveness, feeling remorse and repentance, which I think is very important. And of course, no longer doing the negative unloving behavior, thinking, speaking, acting.
So as the Beatles say, all you need is love.
It is so simple. It sounds so trite, so awful. And yet, the more books you study and everything, in the end, this is it. There's only one rule, and that is love. And there is nothing else. We make a lot of words and a lot of texts and a lot of movies and a lot of books are written and so on. But it always comes back to that, it says. And basically it says, do that what you are. We are love. And by becoming and doing love, we are totally ourselves. And then we are also, as you said earlier, go into a higher vibration and return back to source energy, which is pure love.
Isn't it fascinating that we tend to complicate things down here a lot?
Our ego does it.
Yes, it's a specialty of ours here, the ego, is to complicate things. But at the end of the day, you are absolutely right. And again, from the perspective that I'm sitting in this chair, from talking to so many people from so many different walks of life, all talking about similar concepts, the simplest conversation or the simplest ideas are the most powerful. And if you look back to Christ, Yogananda, Buddha, these ideas that they put out into the world were simple, basic ideas. Do unto others as you would like to do unto you. Simple, basic, not 5 paragraphs or 6 pages or a book or two about, well, if you do this, no, just simple, correct?
Absolutely. My teacher always said, God is ingenious simplicity. And I found this very powerful because whenever we usually make so much about it, we are in our intellect. We are using a lot of intellectual stuff, which we have picked up, and then we make it complicated, and then we get exhausted. But if we go within ourselves, calm our mind and so on, go within, because the kingdom of God is in us. We don't have to go anywhere far out. It's all there. We have everything. That's where the stillness is, where the quietness is. And that's where the simplicity is. The intelligence is simplicity. The intellect is complication.
And it's really interesting too, going back a little bit to what we were saying in regards to our origin stories, if you will, with the Catholic Church. I always found it so interesting that you could have a God that loved you, but yet was so angry, and to be honest with you, in the Old Testament, fairly egotistical. I mean, like, if you don't bow down to me, you will be, you will be this or that, or hell. God forbid. Let's talk about hell. All of these concepts, it didn't make any sense to me. And when you become a parent, you understand that this makes no sense. There's nothing our children would do that we would damn them to everlasting damnation. And so if I can't do it, how could our creator do that? It just didn't make sense to me. And they're talking, one side of their mouth is saying, love is all you need. And they're like, but if you don't do this,
eternal damnation. Yeah. Oh, well, that's what I realized very soon. This does not work for me. You're absolutely right. Yeah, this doesn't work. I mean, the old writers of the Bible and so on, the only model they had were the pharaohs. And the pharaohs were, of course, very egoistic, personal, power-hungry, vengeful kind of creatures. And that is, so the Old Testament God is very much sketched on a way how a pharaoh was at the time. So we have got this very human kind of faulty human being, and projected that on that God. And it was Christ who tried to put it right. Says God is love and God is in us. And he put it right, but there was still so many stuffs in the organizational religion which they changed so much. And as Jerome, who put this whole Bible together, he said, if ever people find out, won't there be, I'm a forger, I am a liar by putting all these contradicting texts together. It's very difficult because to put all these various texts from which the Bible is now made up together and find something consensual which agrees on everything, and it isn't. They're all full of contradiction, left, right, and center. And our organized churches, of course, use all these different little things which suit them and other things which don't suit them. So that's why stay within yourself. The church is in you. God is in you. You don't have to go join any organization. You don't have to go to any kind of priest, rabbi, or whatever, unless you really feel, and that's where you find some comfort and so on. There's nothing wrong to go there if that is somebody. If you are in a difficult situation, you have no one else to go, you may want to go to somebody. It's possible, yeah. Everybody has a purpose. But the idea is to be free also from these world man-made kind of restrictions which we find in the religion.
Right. And I love the idea what you said is like, these are egotistical things that we apply to our gods. I mean, you could just look at the Greeks. I mean, the entire mythology of Greek gods, which were religion for them at the time, was all human frailties. The pharaohs did the same thing with the Egyptian gods. I mean, all these gods all had these kind of human frailties because that's all we can conceive. The concept that, it's all love. That's all it is. And, oh, by the way, if you want to connect to God, it's inside of you. What? Can you imagine? What? I can't make money that way.
You point the finger on the true essence.
I mean, how can I put golden walls around my castle if everything's within you and you don't have to come to me for that? Like, you just, as the old saying says, just follow the money.
yes, unfortunately, yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's like follow the money. A lot of times, it's just like, oh, well, I have to do this in order to do that. No, you don't.
There are all these rituals as well, which connected what the religions have, organized religions. The rituals are binding us as well. Mm-hmm. They may sound very wonderful and ethereal, but basically they're all binding kind of things to worldly kinds of things, and also what's the word? Stick the old programs and so on. And it's all holding us back. We are not living in the here and now if we cling too much to the old kind of history of either a tribe, a religion, or whatever. So we are here, happening right now. Now let's be in the here and now, and the guidance, what we have to do, comes right now.
Now, let me ask, this is a question I get asked all the time. Why would you choose to incarnate into a sickly body, a damaged body, a body that is going to be part of an abusive family, or thrown into an abusive, religion or community that kind of just pounds you? Like, why would you choose that? Like, that's hard for the egoic mind here to understand, to choose to go through a fire. But I'd love to hear what you think.
Well, I think you are a father, a parent. If one of your children is very, very sick, really sick, and maybe die, maybe you want to say, oh, God, rather take me, but don't take my child. You will, as a father, you have this loving feeling for that child. Mm-hmm. Now, there are souls on the other side who see that their soul, who they're close to, have fallen very deeply and have created enormous karma. They take sometimes on the karma of another person. We can do that and incarnate on their behalf, so that that the other person's soul can proceed faster in the purification spheres. There are a lot of souls who have incarnated in extremely unfortunate situations, handicapped situations mostly, who are not actually the souls who have created the karma, who have but taken on the karma of another soul who is so low on energy, who could not even incarnate anymore. So there's this one thing. I mean, this is only one person. That's why we should never look at a person who says, oh, he must have had a bad karma. No, it's never, ever should be. Anyway, it's not our business to speculate why anybody has whatever misfortune. But this is one important point to really stop us to ever think about why a person who is handicapped or very disfortunate or is raped or whatever, why does he or she go through that? But of course, there is a lot of negativity that we accumulate or can have accumulated in past lifetimes. We can have been murderers, rapists, killers, sadists like hell. We have done some of 1,000 lifetimes. I mean, this is enormous. In those lifetimes and in the Middle Ages, as you probably may imagine, it was a rough life. It's not like USA at the moment here. We have got a little bit of problem, but compared to the Middle Ages, you couldn't even go from one village to the other without being robbed.
Or killed.
Or killed, yeah. All right. And we may easily have been one of those. So this is all karma that has accumulated. So the hunter says, I will go through this. It's only 800,000 hours. I will go through this. I will endure it. I will experience what I've given to others as a handicapped person, as a raped person, whatever it is. Because a raped child is not a young soul. It's an ancient soul and may have gone through a lot of past lives as well. So as horrible as these acts are, and they do have consequences to the person who does give the harm, like the rapist and so on, that's a karmic consequence. But for the person to incarnate and experience the horror of war, the horror of rape, of torture, of genocide, is something that the soul knew about prior incarnation. It's difficult for us to comprehend that, but we do have, in my videos, I show it something like a screen where we see our future life like a riverbed. And there are certain rapids, there are certain kind of problems on the riverbed, there are maybe some rocks and difficulties, and we see that. And these are life situations which we may most likely encounter, not 100%, because we have always the free will to change it. But these are difficult, our difficult in-laws, the problem with the illness of our child, etc. A very difficult something, whatever comes in our life. We look at this and we wholeheartedly agree to it. Nobody is here against their will. Says, yes, I will do this, I will experience it, and then I will be done with it. It's basically like paying off a debt. For instance, you own $500,000 to somebody, and it burdens you because you struggle to pay it off. You just don't make enough money, and somebody says, well, would you be ready, maybe work for me for 1 week, very hard, 24 hours, and all your debts are gone? Says, yes, I will do that. And the very short period here makes it so attractive, because in the spiritual realm, we don't have the physical body, and everything takes much, much longer. The concept of time is different than we have here. So not only do we experience it in the same karma in a much longer time, but we also don't have the physical body. And the physical body is very helpful because it's like a buffer. We can do something. If pain comes to us in some way, we can take medicine. We can heal it. We do not have that buffer in the spiritual world, so we will immediately feel the karma that is coming back to us. So it is a gift. That's why coming to Earth is a gift for everybody. It's a blessing. And it is such an incredible gift that we can see it right now, that we have got this enormous increase on population here on this Earth. I mean, it just skyrocketed over the last 100 years from 2 billion to what is now 8 billion. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. And the reason is quite simple. A lot of souls in the purification spheres, and there are billion more up there, have decided the Earth is going to a very difficult time now. This is my opportunity to clear up all the mess that I have done in a very short time. And then line up to any possible possibility to incarnate here, to any baby which gets born. There are more souls want to incarnate than we have babies here because of abortion, of birth prevention. Mm-hmm. And therefore, a lot of these souls who want to come here have to decide to incarnate in third world countries, which is not normally their vibration. They're usually higher evolved. But just to be in these coming, let's say, 50, 100 years here on Earth, which the Earth will go through a lot of difficult times. That is the reason why they come. And that is the reason for our high population. The souls are so desperate to come here. Now, I know a lot of your viewers may be so upset with their life and says, oh, I hate it here, I want to get out. And it's so on, I'd rather commit suicide and stay a day longer. But let us be aware, it is such a gift to be here on Earth. It is such a blessing. And billions of souls are trying hard to come into this Earth school. This is Yale, this is Harvard. This is one of the best schools we can have. It's very tough, like any kind of Ivy League school is a tough school for anybody. But once we agree to it, let's stick with it. Let's go through it. We are not alone here. We have our guardian spirit who is helping us every minute. We have got Christ in us. If you believe in Christ, or the Christ force is there anyway, even if you don't believe in it. And then you have got God, and you have got the whole divine world assisting us, helping us, being and encouraging us to go through this successfully and make this life a successful life. We are not alone here. That's very important. We are never, ever alone, even if it appears that way.
And I've had the ability to talk to a lot of people who've had near-death experiences. And the one concept that I hear in those near-death experiences, which is appropriate to talk about in this as what we're talking about, is the life review. Is to be able to see their lives and not only see it, but feel what they felt and what the other person felt, which is really a really interesting idea, that you feel all the pain and suffering you caused others throughout life, something as simple as cutting someone off to something much more extreme. and that we feel that. And from my understanding, from my studies, is that you are right. No one's here against their will. If you have karma, you could choose to reincarnate and deal with it, but you cannot move forward until you deal with it. So, and on the other side, you're like, no, I really want to go down there and take care of this. Because on the other side, it's not looked upon. It's looked upon as a workout, as a school lesson, as opposed to what we see it as, like this heavy burden of, oh my God, I got to carry all this weight. Where they're like, no, give me the more weight. The more weight I can get through this faster. I can evolve faster. But that is the point of this whole thing, is to evolve that vibration higher and higher. So can you explain what ascended masters are? What walking masters on the, because there are walking masters on the earth today. What are they doing differently than the rest of us are? And how do we get there?
I'm hesitant on this one because I have not really met a walking master. I have met people of high evolved vibrations and who are actually living the law of love and expressing it. Anybody who calls himself master I'm a bit careful with this one, hesitant. Yeah, because I think I would not do this. We are on such a low level here on earth to anybody to be a master. I don't know. I think I will avoid this answer. I personally do not believe necessarily there are many masters here. There are people who express the law of love and teach it well and be an example, like Christ is definitely a master. But I don't have enough experience myself to say about that. And what happens on the other higher level, what we have on the other side is there are the teaching angels. These teaching angels are coming from the highest absolute reality and come down in this purification spheres, in the spiritual purification spheres, and teach souls to move on. They themselves have not necessarily incarnated onto planet Earth, but they're teaching spirits and they are really helping the soul to move on. And I think what you mentioned earlier about the life review, there's one important aspect I think we tend to forget. It says, why do we do this? It's not just to undo our karma, because for that it's too short. But what it does, it imprints something in our soul. Like, for instance, if I have hurt somebody because I said something wrong or whatever, it is this hurtful I feel now back in me very strongly. It is partly to feel remorse about it, but also to store it in my soul. So that's why that develops our conscience. So when we incarnate again the next time, our conscience will remind us, don't say this again. You have done it before and it just didn't work out well. So don't do this act again. So this is where our conscience basically comes from the life review, where we have seen the negativity in past lives. And this is stored in ourselves as part of our conscience. Of course, the conscience is bigger than that. It also learns through our lifetime. But this is one of the important points of how we suddenly remember, or how our inner voice says, oh, don't do this, don't go this way. There is this inner voice in us. It's our conscience. And we have done a similar mistake most likely in the past, and it didn't work out well.
So it's kind of like a spiritual DNA almost.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah.
Kind of like it's stuck with you. It's part of you.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, you mentioned the Beatles and Maharishi. Did you meet Maharishi?
No, I didn't go so far. No, I just took the classes, and it really helped me a lot. I must say, it was amazing. I suddenly learned to really keep my monkey brain a bit calmer and calm down. Yeah. And the self-confidence I got out of this was just amazing. But as I said, I'm no longer doing it. I have my own meditations. Anybody who wants to see them, and also a video on how to meditate, I have that on my channel. And I also have guided meditations, which are slightly different. But it was a very powerful and a necessary step on my evolution here.
Right. And it's not about what kind of meditation, is that you meditate. Whatever one works with you the best is the concept. You don't need to go to TM, or you don't have to go, whatever happens to work for you. The concept, right. The thing is that you should be meditating. And I think I want to just kind of dig into what you just said there for a second, because it's an important point, is that you said that after you started to meditate, you got amazing self-confidence. Would you agree that you got that self-confidence because you started to connect more with your higher self, and you started to remember more who you are, then the fear started to go away a little bit more. And you started to become a little bit more aware of who you truly are. When you start to quiet down all that noise, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm a soul. Oh, that's kind of where I've gone, because since I've meditated, I've become much more calm, confident. Things that used to bother me don't bother me as much anymore. Things like that. I mean, before someone cut me off, I was the guy chasing you down with the middle fingers and honking the horn. I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? When I was a young man. But that doesn't bother me. Now I'm like, what is wrong? What's happening with that poor soul that he had to feel that he had to do that? I feel bad for him. I have empathy for that. So that's how I generally work it. I'm not 100%, let's just call it, but I'm much better than where I was.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I must be honest, with the transcendental meditation, I think I just learned to calm my mind, which was quite sufficient. I don't think I went to a much soul business at that time. It was just really an incredible technique that I was suddenly in control. I don't have to think every thought. I can have the TM any minute. And that gave me a lot of confidence. It wasn't so much at that time to explore my soul. That came much later. Then I did meditations, and I also created the inner dialogue with divinity. That all happened much, much later, but that wasn't my first step.
Now, with a lot of the concepts we're talking about, I'd love to know where the source of a lot of this information comes from. Where have you been studying the deepest, and what has resonated with you to bring this kind of work out into the world? Like, there's so many, a lot of these concepts are in hundreds, if not thousands, of different teachings around history. What is it? Where did you find these teachings, and how are they coming out of you?
Well, as I said, I've done many popular paths in the past. A lot of that I use as well. And I had the great honor and pleasure in meeting a lot of people on the spiritual teaching path. But for the last 40 years and so on, most of the information that I share in my video comes from Germany, from a woman, Gabriele, called herself a mystery of light. But you won't find her on the internet. She does not want any promotion, any self-promotion or whatever it is. She says it's only between you and God. There's no one else. There's no organization. There's nothing. But there are all these revelations. These are the books. And you see them in the back here, the blue books. These are over time. It's a huge, the Sophia Library has got all her revelations there. And she channels from the absolute reality. And the material that I read there for the first time were just mind-boggling for me. I couldn't believe the depth, the clarity. See, when you remember Edgar Cayce, it's not easy to read. It's very difficult.
He's not an easy read, my friend. No, he's not.
Yeah, or Rudolf Steiner and so on. They're all wild people, but you read them and you have to read the sentence 3 times. Now suddenly it comes in a language very clear, no misinterpretation possible. And also on a depth which I've never understood. And I try to put this, to understand it myself, because I'm a writer and illustrator. I did make these illustrations in my videos because it helps me. I do these videos for myself, Alex. I mean, it sounds crazy, but when I do something physically like this, draw things out and see how the dots connect so perfectly, that just has a major impact onto me. And I share this gladly with others. If it works for others, it's great. I have zero interest to convince anybody about whatever I share in my videos to believe it or have to believe it. It is my own discovery, and I do it for myself, and I gladly share that. So what I found out on this path, on this Christian mystical path, is that absolutely every answer I could ever think of, I have an answer, I can find the answer for. And everything is very clear, and everything is very direct, and there are no secrets. God has no secrets from his children. There is no mystery here. And because of this absolute clarity, and we don't have to learn any exercises or join any groups or any clubs or an organization which has teachers and priests and so on. No, it's only a path between you and God, or you and Christ directly. It's a mystical path, the path within. So I liked the fact that I was not going to depend myself on another system and another formation, another group or whatever. It is just something between you and God only, if it works for you. So this was the most powerful thing. Then, of course, over the years, I have also slowly, with a lot of mistakes, learned to apply the teachings and various tests. And the changes which I have seen in my life have been quite phenomenal. There's a long way to go, but the little I've done, I just really seen this stuff works. This stuff is true. And I mean, it's simple stuff which we also know from, like the law of projection, that everything outside is a projection of ourselves. There are simple things like this, the law of attraction, etc. But how to navigate through this and how to do that's something where I found so much help. And that is what I express in my videos. And if anybody is watching, and I mean, those who are watching are very simple. For instance, I like to draw out these things for myself. Like, for instance, here is the law of karma. You see somebody does something bad there. And where is this now stored? In the Akashic records, and then in the repository planets, and how it comes back. When you see this in these very simple forms, it makes, to me, more sense than if I read it intellectually with my mind. So that's basically what I do. I sort of express what I've read. It's like when you get a stuff from IKEA, when they say you have to add part 1 to part B, it doesn't make sense to me. But when I see how part 1 fits into part B, then it's very clear to me. And that's exactly what it is. I do the IKEA way.
The IKEA way of spirituality, which is painful, by the way. If anyone's ever built anything from IKEA, understand it's not easy and it's painful, but you can do it. Now, let me ask you, because especially in the West, we have such a need, and we're bombarded with messages about finding happiness outside of us through materialism, through consumption, through these latest whatever gadgets, and they all have their place. You know, many of them have their place of tools, but this necessity that people don't figure out till too late, or maybe not even at all, is that they can spend money and spend money and spend money and have fame. And as you know, I come from Hollywood and I've worked with a lot of big movie stars and things like that. And I've seen firsthand, when you have fame, when you have money, when you have all of this stuff, it still does not even begin to fill the bucket that you're looking to fill. And only after you start to go inward is when you actually start to fill that bucket little by little. But can you give any tips to people listening on how to kind of transcend that egoic mind of needing things outside of themselves to feel happiness, to feel fulfilled, and to start looking inward?
Well, you already sketched it out very nicely. I do have a video, I think it's called Fame, Power, and Wealth, where I explained it in great detail that these people very often, who are striving for these things, thinking that's where the happiness is, have got this inner hole, this vacuum in them, which the message is what they usually always have is, I am not enough, I am not enough, I am not enough. Right. And that is where the negative forces, and there are negative entities around this world, which we can't see, but they can really manipulate us and can help us. Oh, I can give you this, etc. Really Freudian bargain. There's no question about it. And they can give you this. And you can have wealth, and you can have fame, and you can have power. But every time you reach a level, it's not enough, not enough. I mean, the richest person must do more. It becomes more greedy. And the reason is because they are totally spiritually exhausted. They have no more energy left in themselves. So they think the energy from the outside, which is money, which is power, which is wealth and fame, will fill them up and will give them the energy they need to live. But every time they have it, it's still not enough. And it is usually so until they finally eventually learn that the outside world simply cannot give you the stuff which you are really leading. You have to really get back to the source, and the only source there is within you, and this divinity, and then you can turn and get the energy from divinity. You can, of course, rely on the energy which is borrowed to you or lent to you by the negative forces, but eventually you will have to give them back. Like in a Faustian bargain, eventually you have to serve them. But most people believe that the happiness, as I said, is in the outside. I also like to say the happiness is always a little bit short-lived for me. The happiness it's just a quick joy, quick kick. I like to go with deep joy, deep ecstasy.
Right.
That is our true essence. Our essence is deep joy. And the deep, deep joy does not really need happiness. Happiness is, for me, a bit short-lived. But it's semantics here. I understand if somebody does see it differently. And we all like to be happy and so on. But the happiness comes from freedom. When I am free, then I am happy. It's quite amazing what freedom can do to us. And also what helps most is it's not the thing from the outside, the other thing to get into this more positive, maybe happy feeling. A very simple step is gratefulness. Just be grateful for whatever you have, for the computer in front of you, for your nose in your face, or whatever you can think of, because there are billions of people who don't have that. And whatever we have, be grateful for that. And the moment we focus on grateful, we cannot worry, we cannot complain, because we are totally feeling the abundance somehow. And the more we increase and in our mind the items we are grateful for, the more abundance we will feel. And out of abundance is another feeling of joy. And for some people, maybe happiness to come from that. So we have got very simple tools to come from a negative frame of mind into a more positive ones. But as you said earlier, the main reason why so many people strive so hard, like Hollywood, for wealth, money, and so on, comes from the inner feeling that I'm lacking something, I'm not good enough, and I'm not enough.
Oh, yes. Like I said, I've worked with many
actors
and actresses. Oh, my friend. I've met many of them, worked with many of them as well. They just don't understand. They just feel like there is that I'm not enough vibe. I've spoken to Oscar winners, and I go, so you won an Oscar, then what? And they're like, I was lost. Yeah. Because you put this in your mind that this is the ultimate prize, that once I have this, I will be happy. And you're happy for a day, maybe a week, maybe a month. But at a certain point, it doesn't do anything, because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. Whereas the love of your child or your partner, or the energy that you get from being of service to somebody, that is so much more fulfilling and powerful than winning an Oscar. And I've again, because I've had that ability to speak to a lot of these, sometimes on air, sometimes off air, which the off air conversations are much more interesting, but they're not for public view. But you start to hear the stories of lack, and you'd be surprised.
Imagined
lack in their life, because they are not looking at they're not focusing on the right place. It's pretty fascinating when you let's say you go out at a certain point, all the money in the world. Let's say tomorrow, you and I both have $10 million in the bank. Okay. US dollars. We're pretty much done. If you're smart with your money, we have no more worries about anything else in life. We have a house. We have our food covered. We can help our children. We can help even friends. We're covered. But yet there's people who go, 10 million, I need 100 million. After 100 million, I need a billion. After a billion, I need 100 billion. And it's a sickness almost, because at a certain point, how much bigger of a box do you need to live in? Right. How much fancier do you need your horse and buggy to drive you around in? Like, at a certain point, you just have to go, do I need a $500,000 car, or will a Toyota do? It's all perspective. It really is all perspective. People are like, well, what if you were gifted a Ferrari? Because my last name happens to be Ferrari. They're like, I would sell it and buy a Toyota. Toyota's not sponsored, by the way. They're not a sponsor of the show. But or buy a Honda or whatever. Just buy something that makes, for me, I just need a car to take me from A to B. That's safe. It's comfortable. Done. That's it. So it's fascinating to people that get so caught up in all of these, don't even get me started on clothes. Can you imagine? My family walked into like this big designer store at an outlet mall the other day, and my kids walked in and they saw a little purse, $850, like a little hand purse. They go, what is wrong with these people? My daughters were like, that's just a purse. I go, that's called branding.
You're a man, you don't understand it. My wife would have some reasons to explain that to you.
Some deep spiritual reasons, like I need the Gucci. See, Gucci was brought in by Jesus, and Jesus was the one who created Jesus.
Well, this is the thing, that in our society we fall so easily for all these influencers, which is a totally new thing, and then commercials and so on, the cars for advertising and so on. In our capitalist society, that is something we fall for and have fallen for all the time. And partly it has helped our economy to grow, but the growth of our economy also meant a destruction of the planet. So it's a very, very strange kind of situation here. We have never learned to be modest with our demands and our requires. It's just not part of our way of thinking. And that's where we eventually will learn from. And we learn already because of there's climate change. There's no more water in California or whatever. So it's serious. It is serious because we are overconsumption. And the overconsumption is a form of karma coming back to us. And we all have to learn from it, and we all have to make adjustments. If we don't learn the gentle way of letting go, we will learn the hard way of sort of facing our own nonsense that we have created. But it is our society which promotes the idea, I am not enough. And we have to watch this very carefully. I think anybody who's watching this video maybe asks themselves, do I have it somewhere in me as well that I'm not enough? And the only thing can help you is to fill that soul, that hole is divinity, is God. And when we can link with that energy, then we are everything.
And that's so important that people listening should ask that question. Do you have that question inside of you? Am I not enough? But you were born enough.
Yeah.
You were born perfect. Yeah. It's all the crap that was thrown onto you from the moment you came into this world, from your parents, from your friends, from your colleagues, from your community, from your religion, through television, whatever all that programming that they get through in is. I forgot who said this, but it's very true. You spend the first 7 years of your life being programmed, and you spend the rest of your life trying to deprogram that programming and to try to get back closer to source, because you come in as close to you as you can to source. Yeah. And then you start to like, am I not enough? I'm not getting the love. Or this is that. And then you start creating stories in your head. And then as you start to release those stories, as you start to believe those stories, then becomes dogma in your mind. And I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. Whereas if you deprogram yourself to understand the truth, then life becomes, like you said, you're more free in life.
It's all the programs which we have adopted from our environment we have to question each one and just let go of it if it doesn't suit us anymore. And that is, I think, our task. That's freedom. I come always back. The main purpose is for us to become free again, which includes questioning all the value systems, the programs, the religions we grew up in it. And I'm not saying they're all bad. It's just only find out whether they still are right for you at this moment.
Now, there's something you've spoken about before, and I really think it's an important topic to kind of tackle here, is grieving and holding on too tightly to souls that have left or transitioned, and how you properly grieve, let go, and move on from a death in the family or any kind of thing, and the dangers of not letting go and holding on and holding on. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we have got this idea that this is the only life we have here on earth. And therefore, if somebody dies, then of course he is no longer part of life. He is no longer existing, or if he's existing, we don't know what happened to him. So how could he be happier than we are here? The truth is that none of us are really happy either, but that's another point. So we have great problems understanding that the other person who has died is having a life on his or her own at the moment, which means a progression of his education, of his development, evolution. So this stops us and thinks they should be with us, they should be here, they would be better off if they're with me. Truth is, if they're better longer staying long, they could burden themselves more here on earth as well. It's not necessarily it's better for somebody to stay very long. Long life does not necessarily mean we have made a successful life, because we could have created more karma in a long life. So everybody dies exactly on time, as Byron Katie always says. There are no mistakes. Although I must say, we do have still the free will. We can kill ourselves earlier, and there are some kind of procedures, medical procedures, which can extend our life unnecessary as well. But everybody basically dies right on time when the time is up. Now, a soul that leaves is a soul, eternal spirit. So it goes back to the spiritual realm where it continues its progress of returning back home. But if we, through our excessive mourning, hold on to that soul, oh, he shouldn't have left, how can you leave me alone, etc., then that soul feels everything that we feel if it was a close soul, like a family member or a loved one, a spouse. They feel that very strongly in them. They are extremely burdened by the mourning, grieving that we are having, the excessive mourning or grieving. I'm come to the point that there's a certain amount is necessary, but the excessive is something which holds the soul back. Now, grieving and mourning, if somebody suddenly dies, is a natural occurrence because it's like somebody chops up my arm. I have to firstly adjust to this. It's a time of adjustment. So I will be pretty pissed.
Yes.
And this is really bad. So yes. But after a while, it says, okay, there's no other way. I have to live without my arm. That's just part of the life. So grieving and mourning are not bad in itself. They are a healing period and they are necessary. But the excessiveness becomes then selfishness because we are only crying about ourselves. We do not ever cry about the other soul because none of us knows what happens to them. Most likely they are doing much better off, particularly when they were sick. They no longer have the sickness now. So they are better off, but we are crying and feeling sorry for ourselves. It's a totally self-indulgent process if it goes on too long. And this is where the danger is, and that's why I make this video on mourning and grieving, that we are holding back the souls on the other side, and they cannot progress, and they feel so sorry. Now, I also am taught on my spiritual path, mystical path advice, not to try to communicate with the soul that has departed. Now, I know a lot of other people believe otherwise, and that's fine. But the reason is because some of these souls are not maybe necessarily strong or not focused, and they can start attaching themselves to us. And for this reason, the only way, I would like to suggest is to go to Christ or to God and let him or speak on our behalf to that soul. Let the God or Christ come between you and the soul which have departed, so that there is no more direct contact possible. Ask Christ to convey your love to that person, whatever you wish to say, still have to do, and let that pass it on. To trust that energy to do that on your behalf. That will protect you and also make sure that the message which you have for that soul will be passed on to that soul. So these are the little things I like to imagine. And there's another reason why why people have excessive mourning is because they think they have not verbalized I love you to the person who has died. This is what Dr. Kübler-Ross told me. And that's why I made my book, I Will Always Love You, which is a bestseller. But it is basically that message. If people feel they haven't said it, they are the married couple who never say I love you, but suddenly he dies and they hated each other, they were fighting, and suddenly he becomes a saint because the widow says, oh, he was such a wonderful person. True, she never said I love you. But you can still say that in your mind, but the person is dead. You can say it via Christ and say, look, I want him to know I love him, and so on. And of course, it's also very difficult. And I get many correspondence in the last few years, increasingly from parents whose children have committed suicide. So that is a very tough subject. And I can understand that because they are not prepared for it. Right. And when an elderly person dies, we says, all right, one day they will go, but a young person totally committed suicide. There's so much guilt in it as well, etc. There are so many emotions involved in this one. So we do have this very difficult situation. And I fully understand that grieving or trying to find a way to deal with the situation is very difficult. But we do have our comforter in us. None of us is alone. This is Scripture saying we do not have to walk this path alone. We have Christ in us, or God. We can communicate. If we do not have that relationship, maybe it's time to consider to develop that relationship to divinity, because sooner or later, everybody will have to. So far, our ego may have says, oh, I don't need this God stuff or Christ stuff. Just leave it for my aunt. She believes in all that stuff. I don't do that. Fine. But eventually, you will have to become and return back to love. And I always believe The parable Christ always told is the prodigal son, where the son leaves the wealthy father, give me my inheritance, I go into the world, he goes into the world, squanders it all, creates karma, until he sleeps with the swines, and so to survive, and then he remembers that the servants in his father's home live better than he lives now, and he says, I will go home and just ask if to be a servant in my father's home again. And of course, when he returns, father is happy, embraces him, has a big feast. That is a story of our life. Eventually, we have to accept the energy of the Father, I'm not saying the human Father, of somebody who is greater than ourselves. And that energy is with us all the time, wanting us to return home. That energy gives us all the help we ever will need. All of us for us to do is to turn within and ask that help to show us. I remembered one of the most powerful things I ever had when I was young and had one of these broken relationships, and I was devastated and so on. That is crazy puppy love. I mean, today I laugh about it. But then again, I was young, I was stupid. I'm still stupid, but not young. But at that time, I just was devastated, and I was crying in bed and so on. And then suddenly the words I remembered says from our Father says, "Thy will be done." And I said these words in the crying tears, "Thy will be done. All right, you know better. I leave it to you." And that instant I said this, there was a wave of energy that came through me. It's just like they have been waiting for this, for me to realize that. And I was so healed in that instant that I couldn't believe the sudden change in an instant when you suddenly says, "Thy will be done." The totally surrender to an energy that knows more about my life than I ever will do and knows far more better what is good for me. And this surrender is so powerful. And that's why I say, if you haven't developed the intense the relationship to divinity, maybe look into it. It really may come a time, and time may get more tougher on this planet, that you need it. And the sooner you start with it, the sooner the better.
You said something that was really interesting, and I've never heard anyone talk about this before. You said that the soul continues its evolution even on the other side. That here it's it's accelerated course, if you will, to learn. But on the other side, there is still learning, but it is a slower process. Can you dig into that a little bit? Because I've never heard of that concept. I've always wondered what happens to the souls when they're on the other side. Is there a bar they all go to and drink and talk about their lives? Are they watching movies? Are they watching us because we're entertaining as hell? I mean, what happens on the other side? I mean, I've heard a little bit in the near-death experiences. I've heard a couple of them state about, like a school-esque kind of environment and different rooms that they can go into. I'd love to hear what you've learned in your travels.
All of the above.
There are bars, there are movies, there are music.
Yes, there are, because they're on our planet Earth. There are a lot of what we call earthbound souls. And there are probably as many, 8 billion earthbound souls as there are human beings. They are running around us. Souls that have not been able to move on onto higher spheres, who believe that life on Earth is all there is, very strong. These souls are amongst us, and they influence us. And if they do have drugs, illness, drug desires, or whatever it is, they can influence us and they can live through us. I've got a video called Spirit Possession. Spirit Possession is such an powerful and existing situation at the moment. Most people are not even aware of it. So many suicides come also from spirit possession and a lot of other things. So we do have souls who have died earthbound. They have not moved on because they are not educated enough. Their vibration is too low. They think this is it. And they also are attached to their vices. And the only way to live the vices is for they need a physical body. Since they no longer have a physical body, they use the physical body of you and me and make me this, I need a drink. And then I go to a drink and have a drink and so on. And they use that energy. They actually attach themselves to the neck and they use us to enjoy the drink, the alcohol. So that we are manipulated by the spirit being. But that is a minority. It's not the majority. The majority moves on into the higher spheres. And we have got, in my video, I explained it, mainly 7 layers of spiritual layers. The lowest form is material. Material is nothing else than vibration. There's nothing else. I mean, we're only talking about vibration. The highest life form, divine love, is vibration. The lowest form, earth, matter, is also nothing else than vibration. There's nothing. We're only speaking about vibration. So they are then, depending on how their vibration of the soul is, it's like attracts like. They are coming to the various levels that correspond to their kind of energy. So that's where this are basically will move to once they have died here in the physical death, and they are surrounded by like-minded souls. And the stronger our belief system is, the stronger the souls are of similar beliefs. Like, for instance, if I'm a very strong believer in Muslim and so on, terrorism, then I'm moved immediately to that kind of people who are similar way. If I believe a very capitalist lifetime and only money, that could be that I'm moved to capitalist. If I believe another religion, if whatever my strongest belief is, that usually determines very much where I will land up amongst what type of souls I will be with at the time. And there, education continues, the growth continues. The causal computer, which always brings us back the karma, which we have put in, will continue bringing me back the karma. There I will endure the pain and suffering as well as what I would do here on earth, but it will take much longer. So eventually the idea is then eventually return back to source energy, to God, in the absolute reality, but not giving up our identity as a soul or as a spirit being. We do not dissolve into the stream of God like Eastern teaching is, where we just sort of suddenly become nobody or start all over again. No, we are eternal being. We are created eternally, and we return back to our angelic state. That was very long, was it? I'm sorry.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. No, it's a really, that's really interesting way. It's like, so depending on, so when Jesus passed or Buddha passed, they were at a very high vibration as masters, as walking masters. So they went up to a higher vibration. And from what I understand from my teachings, there are even higher vibrations to where Christ consciousness was when he first evolved. And there's higher levels, and there's levels that we don't even understand yet because we're not evolved to that level yet. And there were all, but the Christ consciousness was much higher than anybody else hanging around here on this earth plane. And he slowly has been helping us, among other masters who've come back to help, to try to lift the vibration of the entire planet, which is kind of what I understand is happening now. The awakening is happening where conversations like this are becoming more mainstream and people are searching for these conversations, as opposed to in the Middle Ages that we would have both been burned at the stake.
Yeah, there is definitely an awakening happening place. There's no question about it. But there's also a lot of karma now coming back in a big, massive way. Sure. Everything comes now onto the table because it's a time to clean up. And as tough as it may look, but it's something we should embrace and do our best we can. But we have always these teachings which are given to us all the time. And what else is there? It's all in us. This is the thing. It's not really outside of us. It's all in us. And if we learn to be calm and quiet, as you said earlier with meditation, whatever we need to know right now is given to us. Every day it's different to us. We have got different challenges every day. But if we go within, we find guidance of how to deal with every challenge we have. We are never alone, and we are always guided and helped.
Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests.
Mm-hmm.
How do you define, what is your definition of living a good life?
A good life is aiming for freedom. That's for me, to become free of everything that binds me to this planet Earth in a negative way. I mean, this is sort of, it doesn't mean to be free of my beloved one, because love is not binding, it's linking, it's different. But anything that binds me, my habits, my belief patterns, whatever it is, what binds me to this planet, get free, freedom. So the answer is to become free again.
How do you define God?
God is the all-love, the all-powerful God Spirit. It has many, many names. In my video on the Everything is Energy, because our human vocabulary is rather limited, to find a real word for God is limited. But we have got different names. We have got Holy Spirit, we have got a divinity, we have got the ether power, the life force, many, many words for it. That is for me what a God is. This is basically where we come from, what we are made of. and where we return to.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
The ultimate purpose of life is perpetual evolution. Not only ourselves, but the whole creation is continuously evolving. So we are part of this evolvement once we are back, and the whole absolute reality is continuously evolving and getting bigger and bigger. And we are part of this. We are part of this very exciting process of returning back to creation, where more planets and everything is continuously created, and it continuously grows, and it continuously more growing awareness, growing intelligence, growing consciousness. So that is very exciting.
And Hans, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Well, I've got my website, lifeexplained.com, or you can also find me on hanswilhelm.com, and of course on the YouTube channel. If you punch in my name, it should come up if anybody wants to.
And do you have any parting words for our audience?
Parting words, always remember gratefulness, gratefulness, gratefulness. When you switch off this program right now, close your eyes, think of 10 things you're grateful for, grateful for, grateful for. Not only because of your partners, because you have them. Find 3 or 5 reasons why your partner is so important, or the person in your life, or the dog in your life is so wonderful. And find 5 reasons why they are so wonderful, not just add them as one item. Be grateful and see how much different you will feel after that very simple exercise.
Hans, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful conversation. And I hope it helps people listening around the world. My friend, thank you so much for not only coming on and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom with us, but also for the work that you're doing in the world, my friend. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Alex. It was a great, great honor and pleasure to be with you. Keep well.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.